Hi, everybody. It's Jolly, and welcome back to my channel. And we're trying something new today, new for me, at least. So if you've looked at my videos or been following my channel at all, I primarily just post walkthroughs of finished makes. I've never done sort of a process video, but I said at the end of my last video that I wanted to start doing some make along with me videos potentially. And so I thought we would just sort of dive in and try that now. So what I'm going to be making is, so this is week one of the August 2026 edition of Seek, Gather, Create. So if you're not familiar with Seek, Gather, Create, it is excuse me, a month-long challenge that is hosted by Lisa Goddard, Tina Hoyce, and Laura Dennison, primarily on Instagram. And it happens twice a year in February and in August. I participated for the first time this past February. And what happens is each Sunday, in this case in August, uh, you're given a set of three clues, basically, or three items to seek out, to gather, and then to create with. And then you have until the following Saturday to post whatever you make using the hashtag Seek, Gather, Create AUG 2026. And like I said, I participated for the first time this past February, and I've been eagerly anticipating participating again. I had a great time in February, and this actually gives me something to look forward to in August because if you know me at all, I hate summer. I am not a summer person. I am a fall winter girly all the way. But this actually gives me something to look forward to in August. And so, yeah, so for the February edition, I ended up making you, so you can make anything you want, like I said, using these four items. I for my first one in February ended up doing let's see, I did an altered cabinet card. I did two matchbooks, altered matchbooks, and my last make was an altered tea sachet. So yeah, and then so for this edition, I want to stick with doing sort of small assemblages. I've had a lot of fun doing that, but again, I'm going to see as we go what the clues are, what items I have, and what they lend themselves to. So with that very long and rambling introduction, uh, the week one items were posted this morning. I am filming this on Sunday, August 2nd. So these were just posted a little while ago. And so the week one items are coral, a fish, an edge, and dark green. So yeah, so that's interesting. So obviously the coral and the fish leading me in an aquatic direction. So I've already done some of my seeking and gathering, and I just wanted to quickly share what I've come up with. I'm not totally settled on the direction I'm going yet, but I wanted to share some of the items and my thought process. Oh, sorry, I bumped the camera. And also, again, please be gentle with me. Again, like I said, I've never done this before, so this is my first sort of make along process video. So um, hopefully, if I do any more of these, if you even see this, it will get better from here. But yeah. Anyway, so first items were a coral and a fish. Um, and so what I have several things that could fit that mold. But one is I just bought this stamp set. It's stamp and actually coordinating dies from Simon Says Stamps. Simon Says Stamp, and it's a Tim Holtz and Stampers Anonymous. It's Sea Life CMS 3004. And obviously with Sea Life, there are these two fish stamps. So I think I'm considering you're going to use these as my fish element. And then here they have this, which is, I'm afraid that it's actually seaweed, but I think we're going to call this coral for these purposes. So I've got these, and so I know I want to use these, um, and then and I have the matching dies for those, which is and I don't know, I don't do much die cutting at all. I actually only own the Sidekick, which is the tiny little Tim Holtz die cutting. I don't own like a full size die cutting machine, but these are small enough that they will work with the Sidekick, so I could do some die cutting. I also have this stamp set, um, and I'm not sure where this comes from, but I think it was like a journaling because this is like journal spots. So, um, but this has some, again, sort of coral-esque stamp, so that's another option. There's a fish on here as well if I want to go smaller, but I'm really liking the style and the size of the Tim Holtz, so probably going to go with those. And then in terms of what I'm actually going to make the assemblage with, so I have two ideas. One is, so I've actually just yesterday I was starting making um, these little boxes, which are actually just made with a toilet paper roll. And I was following a tutorial. I can't remember the name of the person. I'm doing really well, obviously, guys. So far, but I can't remember the name of the woman whose tutorial I followed. I know Bohemian Crafting also has a couple of great tutorials about making these boxes. It's the exact same process. Um, so uh, I will look up the original tutorial I followed and I'll link that below, or when I come back, I'll let you know that person's name because I want to give them credit. Um, so yeah, I've been playing around with these boxes, and I was thinking, I could decorate the outside, and then these would fit if I stamp these and cut these out. These kind of fit. Um, I can kind of put them in. They wouldn't necessarily fit. Oh, I mean, I could get one on here, for sure. Um, but I could also kind of put them in and have something for the box to hold. So that's an option, in terms of sort of the vessel. And then I also just have in my random collection of little boxes that I've saved, I've got this little, I think I had purchased a little chain. Um, and this was the jewelry box that it came in. And I think this would also, the bottom would be a perfect size. Um, Again, if I stamp out the fish, that would fit perfectly in there. I could stamp one or two of these, and put it on there as well. And so that's another option. So I've narrowed it down to those two options. So I think I'm either going to do a little box or just use this little gift box and make a little assemblage. Um, so that covers coral and fish. The next item is dark green. And since we've already got sort of a nautical theme going, I knew I had these, so I had bought 2 packs of these are vintage fishing line labels. So they're just like thin labels, but they're from um, I guess packages of fishing line, and they're very cool. They're all very different, and I got these from Crafty Lisa's Vintage, um, on Instagram. And so I was like, oh, these would be good to maybe incorporate in some way since we're already doing, we've got very nautical things going, a nautical theme happening already. And I was going through, and then I got to this one at the end, which is dark green and has a fish on it. And I was like, well, that's pretty perfect. So I'm definitely going to use this in some way. And again, I think it would fit perfectly on one of these boxes. So again, that could be one side whoop, 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 um, of one of these boxes. I think, I don't know why I put this box back together. Hold on one second. Um, but it also fits perfectly in this box. And then I think, you know, I could put it somewhere and also incorporate the fish, um, and maybe incorporate the coral in some way. Um, so yeah, so definitely going to use this. I think this is going to be my dark green element for sure. Um, and then, uh, yeah, so I was also thinking the other option is I have several like jar lids, um, just from like jam jars or candle jars. Um, so that could be an option if I wanted to go circular. And this could go either in the back or the front. So I might pull a couple jar lids as well, just to see if if I want to keep with that theme. So that's what I'm thinking. And then for also for the dark green, so I have a lot of stamps, vintage stamps. Some of these, again, from that same order from Crafty Lisa's Vintage. So I have some actual nautical stamps with fish on them, but then I also just have some green and some orange because I'm thinking, you know, typically I was thinking if I'm doing like fish and an under the sea theme, I would go like blue and turquoise or teal, but I think I'm going to let the colors of this label guide me, and so I'm leaning more into the orange and green, which is not necessarily where I would go, but I think that could be neat. So I've got these stamps, so that's an option in terms of like either creating a background or decorating the outside of a box or whatnot. And then the only other thing I've pulled so far is I've got these. This is not one of the four items at all. But I do have these tiny little air dry clay shells that I had made for another project and not ended up using. So again, these could easily, go in or on a box, or again, why do I keep putting this box back together? If I end up doing something like this, and again, I don't know. I could do the fish and the coral in here and then put this on the back. Um, I just don't. My only concern is I just don't want to cover this all up with the fish. Um, so maybe I might use a smaller fish or whatnot, but I'll figure that out. Or if I do the jar lid, this could be like the back of the jar lid or something, because I do want this to show that it's my dark green element, and I also just think it's really neat. But yes, but if I end up doing a box like this, I can maybe, you know, throw a couple of these in the bottom in some way. It's totally optional, but we'll see. And then the one item I haven't addressed yet is an edge, which is a little interesting. I guess I could maybe put these, if I glued these to the outside, that would be an edge, or along the edge. My thinking right now is that I've done a few makes where the edge I've taken like a lace ribbon and just sort of and glued it on, but sort of I guess ruched it, or I'm not sure what the correct term is, um, but to give it like texture, so it's not just laying flat. And I was thinking if I could do that around, and I could um, dye that with inks, and then it would kind of look like, not only would it give it an edge, but it would also kind of look like waves, because the way I do it, it's just sort of like it gives a texture. I don't have an example, I don't think, right here, but basically just making a ruffle. Ruffle. I think ruffle is the term I was looking for. But to make a ruffle, and that can kind of look like ocean waves. So I think I might stick with that as my edge. Um, the other thought I had is I have other air dry clay molds that make basic kind of like book corners essentially. Um, and so I was thinking I could do, if I end up doing a box, I could put like the book corners on, and that could be considered an edge. But I don't have any of those made, and I'm impatient and I'm not sure I want to wait for them to dry. Although I have pretty much nailed down a technique where I can make air dry clay pieces dry very quickly. I sort of set them up in front of a fan on like a cookie cooling rack, and they dry quite quickly. But um, yeah, so I've got some ideas, I've got some items. I clearly haven't nailed down everything that I want to do, but I did just want to check in and introduce the challenge and introduce what I'm thinking, and then we will go from there. So, um, yeah, I am going to go and I'm going to make some decisions, hopefully, and then I will be back. Thank you for joining me on this journey on my first Make With Me video, and fingers crossed that this goes well. Hi, I'm back again already. This is this is just a couple moments later, and I had mentioned that uh, I had a couple jar lids that I might want to use, and I found this one, which is from a candle that I recently burned, and I it's already gold or brass, and I actually think that looks perfect. And I could have this on the back. I'm thinking I can have this on the back, and then I wouldn't even really need to alter it the outside much because I think this works really nicely. The metallic on the metallic. So and then on the other side, I could build my little assemblage. This fish fits perfectly, as does this one. Um, and then the coral also fits. And then I wouldn't need to worry about, since I would have this on the back, that it could be uh, it wouldn't have to worry about covering it up. So this could still be featured. And then I was thinking I could turn this into almost like an ornament. So potentially poke a hole in the top here. And then I actually kind of really like the idea that this is for fishing line. And so putting some sort of, I don't have actual fishing line. I am very much uh, not a fisherman by any stretch of the imagination, but put something in here to hang it from, which feels very thematically appropriate for fishing line. I also realized, so I have a bunch of these in my stash, which these are just bag handles from, I order delivery food from a place, and these are the handles of the bag. They're just, I don't even know what you would call this, little strings basically, but they are very dark green. And I think they would fit either inside or outside or both. Um, but they would make a cool edge, since that was the one thing I didn't have, is an edge. But these could go around the outside or the inside edge. So, and they're already dark green. I wouldn't have to dye them or anything. So, I actually, after all of this faffing back and forth with the boxes, I think what I want to do is actually do the altered jar lid. Um, oh, I did look it up. So the tutorial that I watched on how to make the toilet paper roll tube boxes is by Paige Elliott here on YouTube. If I remember, I'll link to that again. But if you just search Paige Elliott um, and toilet paper roll boxes, she has a great tutorial uh, that was very easy to follow and short, about 5 minutes long. So yes, so hopefully these will come into play on a future Seek, Gather, Create challenge. I don't think I'm going to use them this week. And then again, I have this box. These will make cool assemblages for something else. But I think this jar lid with this on the back is going to be the winner for this week's make. So, yay, I've decided one thing. So I think then my next thing will be to do is I'll stick this onto the back, and then I will go ahead and I'll have to come up with a background in the back. So what I'm thinking I might do is I might make a little master board with these stamps. Um, and I also, so I have these that are actually nautical themed, and if I have enough of them, I might use these because even though they're not all green, we've got the dark green already between these two items, so I think I can maybe not necessarily have to use the dark green, strictly dark green and orange postage stamps. So I might be able to make, I think I have enough even in this little pack just to make a big enough um, sort of masterboard or collage of these stamps and then cut it into a circle, and that can be my background. So that's what I'm thinking. And then right now I'm thinking that this actually fits really nicely in the inside. So, and that might help cover the inside. So again, that's what I'm thinking, but I will be back. And I think, yeah, I think the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this on here. I'm going to stamp out and cut out these, which I'll probably do off camera because I don't think you all know how to stamp and die cut things. And then we'll go from there. So cool. All right. Thanks. I will be back in a second. Hey, everybody. I am back again, and I've made a little bit of progress. And uh, yeah, side note, I'm feeling very self conscious that this is a very bad video, but we're pushing through. We're pushing through. So anyway, so I have made some progress. So here is where we currently stand with the lid. So I know when I was last with you, and this is about an hour later in actual time, I was just planning to glue the attach the label to the back of the candle lid, jar lid, just as is. But you know, as a an extra person, I was feeling like that was too simple or basic. I wasn't doing enough, so I decided I wanted to add some green to the back to add some color, while leaving this um, sort of bronzy gold color around the outside. And initially, I was going to paint. I was thinking I would paint around the lid, um, but I didn't really have a paint uh, color that necessarily matched the green on the label. And I know I could mix some, but I wasn't feeling it. And I also didn't really trust my shaky hands to paint accurately. So what I ended up doing was I did find in my stash. I have this. This is just a strip of bookcloth that I got in a recent order. So I mentioned before I have a monthly subscription with Bitter Melon Bindery, who's here on YouTube and on Instagram, and I get a monthly package of basically they're for bookbinding, but they're beautiful sort of handmade Japanese papers. Um, and she's also been throwing in some pieces of bookcloth to make spines. And I tend to use the papers not for actual bookmaking, but for projects like this, and all kinds of collage and paper crafts and stuff like that. Um, so this green color obviously is not the same as the green in the label, the dark green label, but I thought actually that that was nice. It gave a kind of contrast, and I like the texture that it gives. Um, uh, and yeah, so I basically just cut a circle around it, and then I inked around the edges with this archival ink, which is an English ivy. And yeah, and so I glued that down first, and I think this green with this label, I think gives me a really nice, like, this feels very vintage to me. I don't know, feels very sort of like mid-century vintage to me. I don't know why, but it does. And so, yeah, so I just glued that down first and then glue that down. And I think that might be all I do on the back. I might just keep the back simple, but I like that I added a little bit of something extra. And then on the inside, we have, so I ended up just cutting out a circle of, I think I actually just used a scrap of an index card, but since it was on my desk, and I made a little collage with some green and orange stamps. And so again, I'm really letting the colors in this, the green and the orange, dictate the entire thing. So yeah, so I love this little collage, very basic um, little collage. And I guess just to give you a sense, since I don't know that I actually said it, how the size of this. So this is just, just over 3 inches, this candle jar lid. So we're still pretty small scale, approach, not even 3.5, but so, um, yeah, so I just made a very small collage with these postage stamps, and I love the colors and how they complement each other. And so, and I debated whether or not to paint the inside. I have this cadmium orange, so flat paint from Golden that I was thinking I would paint the inside of, but I I'm thinking what I'm currently thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to put this string in here, which I think is going to pretty much cover. So I don't think you would actually see, I don't think you're going to see any of the white, and I don't think you would see any of the orange anyway. And again, my painting skills, I'm not sure I trusted myself to do that in a non-sloppy way. I just went ahead and I glued this down as well. And I've just been gluing everything down with Beacon 3-in-1 glue. And so we've got the back done, we've got the background done. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to stamp my focal points essentially. And so what I've done is I've pulled some inks because I'm not sure exactly which I want to use yet. So I've got the English Ivy archival and Monarch Orange archival ink from Ranger, as a couple of options. And then I prefer to stamp with the VersaFine Clair. So I think I'm probably going to try that. But I pulled Shady Lane, which is a dark green, and then the only orange I have in VersaFine is this Summertime. But I think that might work because it's a lighter orange, a little lighter orange than. So I think that these two would work together pretty well. And this has been fun because I don't think orange and green is a combination that I would gravitate to necessarily. Um, just if I were just to pick two colors to go from. So this has been kind of fun playing with a different color scheme. And so my current plan, I think, is I'm going to stamp the fish, and I'm going to stamp both fish just in case, so I can decide which one I want to use. I'm leaning toward this one, but it'll also cover more of the background. So I'm going to stamp both and see, but my plan is to stamp the fish in green, and then what we're calling the coral in the orange color. Um, and then we'll see. I've also pulled out some Wow clear embossing powder because I might uh, use the clear embossing after I stamp it, because for the fish in particular, I might end up watercoloring the fish. I'm going to see how it goes. I've also been thinking about what I'm going to stamp it on. So I've got some Tim Holtz watercolor paper, which will obviously give more of a white background. But then I've also got some old ledger paper that's obviously more, kind of sepia tone or like aged, and it has green grid. It's like a grid paper, and the grid is in green, so that would actually work if I wanted to have something in the background. I don't know if that's going to fight with the design of the fish, and again, I don't know actually how much you might not see actually much of the background once it's stamped. So again, I haven't used these stamps before, so I'm going to do I'm going to do some different tests. I've got my stamping platform. So I'm going to test a few out and see what I like best. And then, yeah, once I have that, I'll be back. And then I think basically what's left is um, I'm going to place the fish and the coral, which, so again, I've got my dark green. I technically have my fish, but we're going to add more fish. I'm going to place those, and then if we do this, we'll have our edge. And then we'll have our fish, our coral, our dark green, and then that'll give us our edge. And then the other thing I want to do is I always need to add words to everything I do. Um, so I'm going to dig through, I've got tins and tins of words that I've cut out of old books. So I'm going to look for some words, and then yeah, we'll go from there. Um, I also need to decide if I want to try, and if I'm even able to, because I don't have, all the tools that I probably would need, to see if I want to try to drill a hole in the top of this so that I can make it kind of like hang like an ornament. If not, I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that. But if I do want to do that, I want to do that before I put the string in. So just something I'm still thinking about. I could also potentially, I'm wondering if I could potentially just stick something to the top with glue to hang it, but I don't know how that will look. But anyway, I'm going to think through that. But next step is fish and coral stamping, and I will be back once I've got that done. Hey everybody, I'm back again. So, and as you can see, I finished the project. I was gonna come back and sort of film more steps in between, but a massive storm came through. It got dark and there was very loud rain, and um, frankly, I was just kind of in the flow, and so I wanted to keep working. So the storm is mostly past now. The lighting is probably not great, but I did want to just come on and show you the finished project and sort of talk through where we ended up. And so I think the last time we spoke, I had put the background in and I had done the back, which remains unchanged. So yeah, I went and I ended up stamping I used the two VersaFine Claire inks with the Tim Holtz stamps. The orange is Summertime and the green is Shady Lane, and I stamped on the Tim Holtz and Ranger the watercolor cardstock on the smooth side and cut it out with the dies, and I love how they turned out. Um, Here's kind of a closer view. Um, the one thing though was that the watercolor cardstock was very white compared to the stamps, and just sort of the color. It was just very stark white. So what I did was after I stamped these three images out, and then um, I heat embossed with the clear glaze with the heat embossing. Um, and then what I ended up doing was I took actually, let's see, I've got it here. Um, One of the dilution sprays, vanilla custard, and I heavily thinned it down with water and just sort of brushed it on to the stamped images, and that actually turned out to be kind of the perfect color. I had also tested some vintage photo, but that was more brown than I wanted, and I like this sort of aged yellow color instead. So yeah, and then I painted the back as well because I knew you would be able to see the back from the other side. So yeah, um, and I also went in, and if you could kind of, it's hard to see now, but I did go through and I put the string, or I'm not even sure what we call this, but we'll call it string for now, around the edge of the inside edge. Um, and then so I had these two images, and again, I was going to use one fish and one of the coral, and I actually ended up loving them that I wanted to use all three. And I realized that one of our prompt is an edge, and so what the plan was I was going to nestle these inside so that it would all be contained within the jar lid. Sorry if I'm sneaking out of frame. Um, and I decided that so we've got kind of an edge with the string, but then I was like, well, if I put them on the edge, the stamped images, then I'd be hitting the prompt for an edge. And then also, I'd have more room, and I wouldn't cover up as much of the background because I do really like the background. Um, and it actually, so this covered, this had little, I guess little lips or whatever you would call them, indents uh, that made it a functional jar lid. And so putting these on actually kind of covered those as well. And so, yeah, so I just glued these on using 3-in-1 glue. And then this, I don't know if you can see that, but the big fish, I added a little bit of cardboard stacked up as a support because that one was uh, less of it was on the rim than the other two. And then I went to my vintage book pages, and I found this. This is from the top of a page, the name of a chapter of that it came from. It was Mysteries of the Deep Sea. So I thought that was perfect. So again, I just sort of stacked up some cardboard, one on top of the other to give it some height, uh, and added that word. And then I thought it was done. And but then I felt like there was, especially in this area up here, it was too much open space. And so I did end up bringing in these little air dry clay shells. Um, and normally I'd want to do, odd numbers. So I would want to do three, but there's only really room for two. But I thought it filled those spaces nicely and went with the theme, obviously, and didn't cut and still didn't completely cover up the stamps in the background. Um, but if we're going by the rule of odds, not necessarily three, we've got the three stamped images and the two items. So I don't know. I think it looks okay. And so yeah, so that's what I did, and then I decided. So I did go ahead. I sort of broke for lunch, and then I put the string in, and then I realized that I had not yet figured out how I wanted to do the hanger. And then I also realized I do not actually have the tools to the proper tools to punch a hole in this to hang it. So just what I ended up doing is I took some of this more of this string And I actually, so I christened a glue gun. So I purchased a glue gun. I have never used a glue gun before, but I bought one on a whim a few weeks ago. And so I just used a little hot glue, and now it can hang from anything, which I really want to do, because obviously, so this again, this label was kind of the inspiration for the entire make. So I didn't want, I wanted to be able to hang it so that you could see both sides. So yeah, so I'm not sure what you call this. If you call, I'm calling it a jar lid assemblage. It's also, I guess, now an ornament. I could hang this on my tree at the end of the year, but yeah, I don't know. I'm really happy with how this turned out. Again, the green and the orange color scheme is not one I would have chosen at the bat, but I'm really happy with. I think that the color of the stamps works perfectly, both the stamped images and the postage stamps. Um, I found the perfect word, and yeah, and again, and even the back, I love the back and how retro and cohesive it feels. So yeah, so once again, that's my make, and just as a reminder, the our the items that we were supposed to seek, gather, and create with were coral, which we've got here, a fish, we got a couple fish, an edge. I put everything on the edge here, and then dark green, which I've used throughout. So yeah. So again, this is the Seek, Gather, Create Challenge for August 2026, hosted by Laura Dennison, Lisa Goddard, and Tina Hoyce. And if you want to participate, which I hope you do, just use the hashtag when you're posting to social media. And yeah, I will be back next week with week 2 of Seek, Gather, Create. And yeah, and I hope I hope overall this video wasn't too painful. I'm clearly still getting the hang of things, and hopefully I'm able to stitch all of this together at the end. Um, so yeah, be kind. But welcome to any feedback folks have in my first sort of foray into a make with me video. And I will see you next week. Thank you. Bye.